Don't let me know when we're ready.
I'm being ready.
Except the person that's responsible.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Williston City Council. It is Tuesday, March the 21st. It is 6:15 p.m. And I apologize for being late. We are starting late tonight because we had a 4:30 workshop earlier, and we took a break in between. If you will, I'm going to ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Good evening. Mayor Goodman.
I'm here.
President Jones.
Here.
Vice President Robinson.
Here.
Councilmember Cox.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
City Manager Terry Bavard.
Here.
Attorney Kirsten Ballou.
Here.
City Clerk Latricia Wright. I am here. And all other staff.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for joining us tonight. If you will, please stand for the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance by the Mayor.
Join me if you will. Lord, we come to you tonight, a city, a group of individuals who are trying the best that we can to do the best that we can. Lord, I ask you tonight to give each one of these council members the ability to look at the issues and to see them with clarity. I ask that you reach each one of them and help them to understand. And Lord, I just want you to know that as I recognize, and I hope everyone does, that as we are laying in our beds at night, the police officers are out there trying to protect us. And Lord, I just ask a special watch on the police officers of our community. Lord, they're in a bad situation and they see us in the worst way. And Lord, I ask you to be with the fire department, because the fire department, Lord, the young fireman died just last week. And it's always a tragedy, but it's even more of a tragedy when they're a young person. So I ask you to be with each of these people as they try to do the work of the city. I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 on our agenda is additions, deletions, changes, and approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 2 is public participation. This is your first opportunity of the evening as a participant, as an audience member, to talk to us about anything that you would like to talk to us about that is not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, we ask you to wait until that time. But if you have anything you've brought to us tonight, we would like to hear it at this time. You have up to 5 minutes to talk with us. You have another opportunity at the end if you don't have anything at this time. Anything online, Mr. Mills? Okay, seeing none, we will move to the consent agenda, which consists of council meeting minutes of March the 7th. Oh, y'all have something? Okay. Sorry, weren't quite quick enough for me to see it. Come on over. If you will, state your name for the record.
Carolyn London.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm just here again about my road, 4th Street. I just don't really know if anything else is still being done about it.
What section of town?
Southwest.
Southwest, 4th Street. Okay.
It's over by the big steel container.
Yeah, the big steel container road.
Okay. Yeah,
Well, anyways.
Southwest 4th Street. Go ahead.
Well, the last time we were at the meeting, we talked about a few, y'all talked about a few things, but, and someone came out and they looked, but as far as that, I don't really know of anything else that's been done, and the road is just really in bad shape. It just has big holes that are getting deeper.
Is it paved or not
No,
paved?
ma'am.
Okay, so it's not paved. Okay,
But the road is just getting worse, and we still don't know who owns it. Does the city own it? Does a private person own it? But in the meantime, that's still not doing anything for us, except making our cars bad going up and down there. Right now, I have it on my phone right now. When it rains, right in front of my driveway, there's a huge mud hole. Right there where you take the trash, and right in front of the driveway, there's the mailbox. There's another huge hole, and it just fills up. It's just mud, you know.
could anybody in the road department shed light on this, please?
Yes, ma'am, we've been trying to figure out a way with the different property owners to get the property needed to actually.
This is the one that's not wide enough
Yes,
to
ma'am.
pave?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Not wide enough. Is it not wide enough for 2 vehicles? It's not the one with the pole in the middle?
Yes, ma'am.
It is the one with the pole in the middle,
If
okay.
you want to. We also, Mr. Walt's fixing to speak, but it's one we brought to you proposed, but didn't have any funding to follow through with
Right.
it.
Okay, I was just refreshing my memory as to which one it was.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Nickel, if you will.
Well, Nickel with Ray Pierce, yeah, I can update that, that's correct. We took a look at it, we put proposals together, what we would need to do to survey the right of way, determine the width that we have, what property would need to be acquired to get proper right of way on the 2 streets, for that to happen. So, you know, we presented that to you, what would need to be done to study that, to really do what needs to be purchased, what can be constructed. At the same time, we would also upgrade the water main that is there at substandard, but there was no funding for that. And unless there was a way to fund that to go forward.
Ms. Bunden, are your neighbors willing to give property from their side? I don't know who your neighbors are, but,
I'm one of them.
okay, good
And
deal.
yes.
If you will,
And
come,
I'm Ralph Curry.
state your name. Ralph Curry,
I'm Ralph
thank you.
Curry. I'm a utility worker as well. You guys, I just purchased a house right down the street from Miss Carroll. And it's lime rock, and it's in disrepair, and it creates a lot of dust. Donald and I have been talking, several times we've been talking about, some sort of improvement, because I know it's not an easement, it's not even really a right of way. It's not wide enough to be paved and put a gutter and have the 20 feet on both sides to do that. Donald and I were talking about something, because the main issue is the condition of the road and the dust that it creates. And we're thinking, is there any way we can put yellow sand on it to alleviate the bumps and to bring the dust level down? So
I think if we put sand on it, the water will just wash it away. I say that because they put dirt on my road, and mine's paved, and they put it in the county paved my road. It happens to run through the city limits. But it's a county road. They put sand on the sides because it drops off really steep, and the sand immediately washed away.
right, because that's good
Waste.
culverts, it will.
Yes,
go
it
away.
will.
I've seen the sand used out at the transfer station out in Archer. That 2 mile road they have there is all sand. They get the same amount.
It holds it down.
They get the same amount of rain we do.
Okay, so
It does, it holds. I'm not saying it's a fix-all, I'm not saying it's something that won't have to be maintained once a
Well,
year to put more sand on it.
if we need road width, are y'all willing to give land to make the road wide enough
I
that it
am.
can be paved?
I am, and I know Emery is, who's not here right now, but that's just 3 of us.
Okay,
Now, William there on the corner, he's not gonna, just don't think about it.
he may not give right
He's
away.
not gonna give. But even, ma'am, if it's not paved, okay, I understand that the road's not wide enough, I understand all that. But just to have it maintained, just to have lime rocks, anything to fill up the hole. The dust is a huge issue, but so are the big holes.
Mr. Bishop,
We can get out there and fix the holes. If you remember 3-4 years back, we went through there and rebuilt the whole thing with millings. And millings is a better substrate, but to contrast to them, for every action is equal opposite reaction. Reaction is the dust.
right.
I mean, the milling stuff you put down, that lasted quite a while.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a good thing, I thought.
It was, and we used everything we had. Now we're trying to find the equal value millings to put back
And now
in.
we don't have any millings left.
Well, like I said, I do get the concept of the road not being
Right,
wide enough.
right.
But just somehow get it maintaining it.
Okay, so we'll take another look at it, if you will.
Absolutely, yes.
And see if there's something.
I'd like to revisit this at some point if we can, to maybe put our heads together. And see if we can. 'Cause I know we're not the only road. I know there's other roads.
Yes, there are other roads.
So maybe we come up with a conclusion too.
And most of the ones that aren't paved are because of the road right-of-way issue, because they're not wide enough.
Mr. Barber, you can correct me if I'm right, they only have a 1-inch water line that actually runs up to their houses. So if my in-laws are using the water, it impacts them. So,
It is a low flow line, and the pipe was already purchased to put in, but the reason why we couldn't put the purchased pipe in was because of the easements. So power was fixed, gas was fixed, but water and sewer were waiting on the road improvements. And as was mentioned, there's a lot of legal issues in that. Just the study, Walt, correct me if I was wrong, but it was like 74 or 75,000 or... Okay, we'll bring that proposal back to you.
Well, if you will, talk with them as well.
Absolutely.
And see if you can get the right-of-way that you need.
I did want to mention that this was on the revitalization
It
plan,
was on
just
the plan we
mentioned.
just looked at. It was one of those roads, huh? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Ms. Fun. Thank you, Mr. Nichol. Anything else for public participation at this time? Okay, if not, we're going to move to the consent agenda, which is the council meeting minutes of May the 7th. I'll entertain a motion for approval. March, what did I say? May. Oh, Lord, that other M word. March the 7th.
Yes, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you for not saying what I said. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll go, this is time for the staff, board, council updates, and we'll start with the city manager.
I have a couple things to present, so I'm good. Thank you.
Are you going to present them as we go?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
not now? Sounds good. Any other staff who have anything they want to add now? Chief Stiegel.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to let the council know that the AEDs for the fire department came in. Mr. Wallace got those for us. They come in for a total cost of around $10,000 and some change. With Mr. Wallace's help, we were secured a grant for a 50-50 match, so we'll be getting half of that back.
Terrific. Somebody thank Mr. Wallace for us, because he's not here. Make sure that he gets that word from us. Thank you, Chief Stiegel. Any other staff member at this time?
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a brief update on the Peso property.
Yay.
Mr. Ross will be excited to hear, as you all will, that we finally have a default on that property, has been entered by the clerk, and so we should be rocking and rolling toward a foreclosure at any time now.
Thank you very much.
What does that mean?
It means that the clerk has decided that because Mr. Peso did not respond to our petition, there is no response now that will be accepted from him. So we're free to move on without needing any input from Mr. Peso. And so what we'll do is we'll ask the court to enter a final judgment of foreclosure, awarding us our fees, and then it'll go to a sale where we will purchase it for the price of our loan, of our lien.
Or somebody else can purchase it for the price of our home.
Yes, if they want to purchase it for more than the lien we have on it.
What is the lien?
But we would get paid the amount back, and then that would be theirs.
Correct.
How much is the lien?
I don't have a current number on the lien right now, but I can get it to you.
It goes up daily.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the property at the top of the hill next to the Tractor Supply, just for everybody's information. The one that's fallen down. Okay, anything else from staff? All right, anything from council members? Have another opportunity to think.
Oh, I do.
Go ahead.
That little container, how's that going on 7? Mr. Code Enforcer.
He submitted that permit, so he's,
How much time do?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We need to do something about
At
it.
first it was the end of February, and now he pulled a permit, so how long does that
He's
go
got
on?
a tree to remove in his yard. I mean, there's more to it than just that container. He moved the container with no city input. We're trying to work with him so
Please come to the microphone, Mr. Carson.
We're trying to get that
Thank you.
container moved to his backyard, but they've got to hire a crew with, I don't know if you've ever seen the pods moved, but that erector set has to be set up.
Have we given him a time limit?
He's got a tree.
Does he have a
that
time
has to be
limit?
moved, and we're gonna work with him.
I don't want to work with him.
No,
Ms. Jones, he is not under code enforcement. We cannot put a time limit on his permit.
So why is he not on code enforcement?
right.
Because he put in a permit for a shed. So we did not put him under code enforcement.
Even though he's violating code
He's not violating code. He put in a permit for a shed.
after he put it there.
After,
I can put him under code enforcement.
I mean, he's got a shed, even though he didn't have a permit for a shed, and he put the shed, which is not a shed, in a place that's not where it would be allowed if he was permitted. We would never, if he was permitted, we would never allow him to
So
put
he
it
has an
there.
unpermitted shed on the property?
Yes, he does.
yes,
It's not really a shed, it's a container.
Oh, I thought you meant a different shed.
No,
no.
he put it there with no
It's a
permit.
container.
That means it's unpermitted.
So basically what's happened is, if you think about it this way, a shed was delivered to his property and he put the permit in to get it placed where it's gonna go. If you
After
want me
he
to put him
violated.
under code enforcement, we can do that, but I
We should
don't
be able
recommend
to
it.
give him a time constraint to get it done by, because it's probably been 90 days.
Oh, it's been since January 4th.
Thank you very
I've
much.
never given a time constraint on a permit before.
He didn't have a permit until like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
He does have a permit though. So, I mean, I've never done that before,
Not
so I'd
before.
have to talk to the attorneys about whether that's legal to give a time limit on a permit.
I'm looking at you.
Miss Attorney.
To the extent that he's not in compliance with the code, that is the only circumstance in which you are permitted to put him under code enforcement procedures. So to the extent if I understand the correct situation correctly, I sort of get bits and pieces. If there is a container, theoretically a shed, on the property in a place where it is not permitted to be,
And would never be permitted to be.
that is the code enforcement issue. To the extent that there's a permit to allow a shed to be in a place where it is not, that you can't put a time limit on.
I agree.
So, sort of parsing those two issues out is
I mean, I agree
a
100%
little
with what you said at
complicated.
the end. But he put it there without a permit, and it's been months. If he needs to take a tree down, he needs to take a tree down. If he needs to get a crane to come move it, he needs to get a crane to come move it. He's known that for 3 months.
Well, if the city doesn't want to work with him, we'll tell him.
I do want to work with him, but I think 90 days is long enough.
Well, I don't have control over his crane, but he has made progress. He has pulled the limb out of the way. The tree has been severed, so he can move that shed backwards and over. So he's got to get the erector set out there now. Those were his words, to get the little crane lift to push back. If you want a time limit, we can give him a time limit, but he works nights and we're working with him.
Well, the reason we're having this concern is because his neighbors have brought it to us.
Right, and
As a
I've talked to the neighbors that are there, and I've let them know we're working with them to get that container pushed in the backyard. So they have to see the same progress we have. But that's where we're at with them. If you want to shorten the lifespan with him, we will. But right now, we've agreed to work with him to help him out with that. He wanted to, go as far as we wanted to go with it, make it look beautiful for the city appearance and his own appearance. But he's trying to get that thing locked in with his family. His dad's going to be the one to get the erector set crane out there. So.
Do we give him?
Can we give him 30 days and ask him to get it done? Or does that have to go back to Board of Adjustments?
You can indicate to your code enforcement officer that if the situation is not rectified within 30 days, you would like code enforcement procedures to begin. That you can do. You can't begin code enforcement procedures as this commission.
Right.
As this council.
I know, that's for sure. That's why I knew it needed to go back.
Right.
So do we want to put a 30-day on them from today or yesterday or?
Today?
From the day you notify him.
Yeah, from 30 days from tomorrow.
From notification.
30 days from
Today's the
tomorrow.
notification that you're given.
Oh, to him.
Yeah, so if you talk to him tomorrow, 30 days from tomorrow,
I mean, don't wait 30 days to talk to him and then give him another 30 days.
Because that's what we've been doing.
I've stayed
And his neighbors are tired of
late
that.
just to go over and talk to him. So I try to bend over backwards to see him. And it's on
I'm
his
sure.
time. It's not on my time.
Yeah.
It's on his time.
Especially if he's working at night and sleeping in the day.
I would say, sometime this week, give him a 30-day notice.
And give him something in writing so he has it.
We have
Yeah.
put everything in writing. So.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. Anything else, Ms. Robinson?
No, that should do it for now.
Anybody else? Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
go for it.
I would like the council and the citizens of Williston to be aware that Mr. Crandall at Homestead Park and his wonderful staff had a fundraiser for your animal shelter. And in that fundraiser, we were able to raise $1,235 to give to the city for your animal shelter.
Perfect. That's, should we send him a thank you note? We probably should, shouldn't we?
Yes.
That would be your decision.
I think
That's right. Can you see to that?
at least we could do
Yeah.
that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Good.
sir. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Nope. Okay, we'll move to the next item of business. Everybody's all right with that? We'll move it to new business. Presentation and discussion with possible action from the Levy County Prevention Coalition's Students Working Against Tobacco. You will, please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Trace Touchton. I'm Judson Hancock.
Okay, proceed as you will.
Alright. Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm here this evening to present the desire of our local Williston Middle High School Students Working Against Tobacco Club for a tobacco-free public park ordinance. While I understand the consensus within our community that less government intervention in our daily lives is better for everyone, I also believe our system of government was designed to protect those citizens who are vulnerable to circumstances outside of their control. I believe that any chance we get to protect our young children and family is an opportunity for a better future. And I believe our ordinance prohibiting tobacco use in city parks would afford us a healthier future. The human brain is not fully developed until the age of 25, and youth are generally the most vulnerable population for addiction. By prohibiting the use of tobacco in our city parks, the city will be protecting children from the many dangers that come with tobacco use in public spaces. Cigarette butts, chew cans, and especially vapes, to include batteries, vape pods, and other items have been found in large quantities within our parks. Furthermore, the dangerous trend is sweeping our society. The use of marijuana, stimulants, and fentanyl within our vape pods is becoming more prevalent. The last thing we want is for a child to accidentally come across an abandoned vape containing fentanyl. Tobacco use is a leading preventable cause of death in the United States. Big Tobacco has secretly been buying up vape companies, to include Marlboro, owning a 35% stake in Juul. These companies have proven that they cannot be trusted. We all know someone who has died or is very ill to the use of tobacco. And the lawsuits of the 90s and 2000s came to an end, the picture was clear. Big Tobacco purposely marketed products to the youth. This same trend is happening with vapes, and we need to do everything we can to limit children's potential exposure to vapes. Just as laws prohibiting smoking indoors was a great improvement to the general public health, A tobacco-free public park ordinance will be a step in the right direction for protecting our youth and our outdoors. For those who are not tobacco users, certainly you can agree with me that when someone is smoking outdoors, you try to avoid them. The last thing you want to do is get a puff of smoke to the face, or nowadays, a puff of vape to the face. The latter being the most concerning, as the puff may include THC or worse, fentanyl. Lastly, the Florida legislature recently added legislation paving the way for local governments to implement ordinances protecting our children, youth, and adults from the harmful effects of secondhand smoke, vape use, and other tobacco products in public spaces. Please consider a tobacco-free public park ordinance. Our youth is asking you to brighten our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. We appreciate the presentation. Anybody have any questions for them? You know why they're here. We brought it to you once before. The fact that they're asking us to, the new state law that was passed that allows the municipalities and the counties to make their parks smoke-free or tobacco-free. And that's what they're here to ask you to do. I don't know if our attorney has any. I know she's been doing some research on it. Might as well start with that while we're at it. Get it all on the table.
The ordinance that they're requesting, as you all know, is now permitted under Florida state statute. You can certainly put different restrictions on it based on your preferences regarding it can apply to certain areas of public parks. It can apply, you can have different enforcement procedures, different sort of ways to prohibit the activity. But the world really is sort of your oyster in this area under the statute. You're pretty much allowed to make your own ordinance for prohibiting smoking in public parks. So it's really up to the council to decide how they want that to look, if they want that to look like anything.
Right. I know when I brought it before, I talked about we now say that we don't have alcohol in the parks. So we were talking about adding to the sign to say no tobacco in the park. And when it came to monitoring it, I do not have a police chief tonight. Do I? Oh, I do have Captain Bordy. He's just sitting in a different place. I do see him back there. That chair is empty back there. We did talk about the monitoring of that and the fact that if someone would have the option to call to say that someone was smoking in the park. Not that we wanted the police officers to monitor it on a minute by minute, hour by hour basis to see if people were smoking in the park or vaping in the park. But that if someone did call to complain about the fact that someone was, and I'm sure they would have spoken to them and asked them to move out of their face, but if they didn't, and they called the police department would have a leg to stand on if we had an ordinance. And that's what we were asking you to consider. And at that time, they made presentation to me about the number of cigarette butts and beer cans, bottles, vape cartridges that they found in our park, mainly John Henry Park, I know is where they went. And I saw pictures of the things that they found there, not hundreds, but thousands of cigarette butts. And that's why they're here speaking to you. And I would like for you to consider it on my part. We just need to know how y'all feel.
I guess I'll go first. I don't smoke cigarettes, I don't get them anymore, but I still feel like there's no point restricting the taxpayers a place to walk out and smoke a cigarette. I hate that they throw it on the ground. I'm not for cigarette smoking, but I'm also not for restricting people any more than what we're already restricting them for across the state, across the country. It's just my opinion.
What about the person who doesn't want it blown in their face? Are you restricting their ability to not have it?
And they might have to take a walk.
They did walk to the park.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
It's a free country for everybody.
Anybody else?
Don't be around smoke, don't be around smoke.
Yes, sir, I understand that, but our schools are tobacco free, and it's arguably that our youth spends just as much time in the park when they're not at school, so.
What is Chief Lynn, Chief Bronson and all the other ones done?
The ordinance just came out, so I'm not really sure, sir, but I can get back to you on that if you'd like.
And you know us, we're always in the forefront. We're not following people, we're always in the front. So. We have any movement on this at all? Nope. Anything else you'd like to add? You see what I hit here, huh?
Read it,
To digest it.
digest it, and maybe look at it in a meeting or two, and just see when do you think you're gonna present it to Chief Lynn Bronson and
They're in the Williston group. They're from Williston Middle High School. They're not from the county.
Yes, sir, we're working in the Williston area.
Okay. Any way you can find out that information for the other ones, see what they're doing?
Yes, sir, we can connect with the SWAT clubs around the county, and we can get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Ms. Latricia, if you will agenda this item again, let's say in a month. Not the next meeting, but the one after that.
The first meeting in April.
The second meeting in April. Yes, ma'am. If you could get back to us with any of that information, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
I don't think we have one of those. Anybody else have any comment they would like to make? Any of you young people? Okay. We're going to move to the next agenda item. If you feel like you need to go, please feel free to do so. We will move then to open public hearing. It is the first reading of ordinance 2023-709, an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, approving authority for golf cart operation on the city streets within the City of Williston, creating a section in the City of Williston Code of Ordinances entitled Use of Golf Carts on Designated Streets, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing an effective date. And we will ask the City Manager Bavard and Attorney Kirsten Ballou to address this.
Thank you, Madam President and Council. So as you know, we're bringing this back to you again for another review. The last time I believe it was a tie, and I don't recall there was any change to the actual ordinance itself. Although there was a lot of topic of discussion about the age, and we were assured by the city attorney that the golf cart ordinance in its form absolutely passes muster by law, and is well written. I think the only thing we need to do, unless there's some other discussion, the only thing that we would need to add to it on the city's behalf would be where it would need to go in the municipal code if it is so passed. And we'll have to pick a spot for it. And then, as you know, from additionally from Walt, from Wright Pearson discussion last time, is that we do have some work involved in putting the ordinance in place. Personally, I would like to see the work. I believe that if it is passed tonight and it come back as a second reading, and I think the way we structured it is that basically if it passes both readings, then we can order the signs, and then it is our opinion that once the sign is placed on the roadway that's been identified and reviewed and passed by our Wright Pierce consultants, that road, or at least that portion of the road, would be open for golf cart usage. As you know, if both are passed, just getting the signs here will take, what was the estimate, gentlemen?
8 to 15 weeks.
Yeah, so 2 months. So.
Okay, and still no map yet indicating which roads.
No, and you're more welcome.
I know I asked that before, but I'm asking again.
We had a preliminary map that was originated actually by the city. These are the roads that the city desired to have. We are going to inspect each of those roads, drive them to make sure that there's no visual impacts or maybe a steep or cross slope that would not be good for a golf cart that a car could pass on,
Right.
but would be detrimental to that. So we're gonna do that. What we didn't wanna do is to spend all that time and effort if this wasn't gonna go forward.
If it didn't pass.
And the way this is worded, it's any street, you can't drive on it as the manager has mentioned until it's signed.
Right.
So once, we'll do the inspections, we're gonna instruct the road department where the signs need to be placed. On any particular street, when it's signed, then that street falls under the ordinance. So this can be done in sections. We're gonna inspect all the roads at one time.
Right.
But the road department will put the signs up,
As
their
they receive
schedule
them.
is. And so that particular road, when it's signed, is then applicable and can be driven out of the golf cart. The other streets that might be signed, if they're not signed yet, you can't use them, but it's gonna be a process. But we're gonna do that official map, which will become part of the ordinance, but we just didn't wanna spend that. If this
I know, because
is
it
gonna-
refers to the map, but the map's not here.
We do have preliminary maps.
Okay,
and
I do remember seeing it somewhere, but it's not in the packet.
Yeah.
Originally, when there was one, right?
Yeah. I can make sure for the second reading that we have the preliminary.
That would be good,
Okay.
just to give us an idea.
I can see that happens.
Okay? Questions for Mr. Nickel or City Manager Brevard? Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Nickel, my memory, and please correct me if my memory is not accurate, is that part of this ordinance was golf cart parking?
That's the next
There's
ordinance.
two ordinances. So right now, we're just talking about the golf cart operation ordinance.
Okay.
The second on the agenda is
This
the parking.
ordinance that you're getting these people to propose at this time is just for the driving.
Yes.
And it is not addressing the inequitable distribution of forcing golf carts to pay for parking when they do not make cars do it. Is that correct?
We're not asking them to pay for parking, we're asking them to pay for a parking registration. So
Just like you have to
But
register
not
your
in this
car.
ordinance.
We're not there
That's-
yet. If
that's
if
the
you will,
second
let's wait till we get to that ordinance. If this one doesn't,
I'm just asking a question.
if that pertains to the next ordinance, not this one.
This ordinance does not
This
address
does not,
that.
no, it's
Okay.
totally separate.
I would say that at the last meeting, I wish the parking one was first because it would have cleared up a lot of my questions.
Yeah, if you
The
don't read
second
them
one
both
was
simultaneously,
first,
it does cause some
So I
confusion.
had so many questions, I couldn't vote on that
Right.
until after many discussions with the chief of police.
And I can't remember whether the age is in the first one or the second one.
14.
Is the 14 in the first one or the second
It
one?
is in the third-
I'm still confused about that.
So am I, please.
Basically, that was pretty simple, wasn't it? It's a licensed driver has to be able to drive it.
But it also says you're 14.
14.
It says-
That's why I'm
But it
confused.
says 14 and
You can't-
under, correct? Which means 15 and up, right?
No, 14 and over, and you can't have a license when you're 14. That's why I'm
So,
confused.
but if we make a rule.
Evidently, that's the state law, right?
But if we make a rule on top of that rule, so,
Ours is more restrictive.
right. So basically, I always refer to sports or hunting, but if the state says he's gotta have a forked horn to shoot it, you can say, I want him to have 2 forked horns.
She's shaking her head at me, and she's not shaking it up and down.
Explain.
She tried last time, but I still didn't understand.
Me too.
It may be helpful to look at the statute. The statute does not permit the city to make less restrictive the situation with driving. So you can't say, oh, you
Sure.
can't, you can't be 35 and driving, right? You certainly can't have an ordinance that says that. What I can tell you is, and I'm not going to re-explain it the same way I did because I feel like it wasn't clear. But I don't have a different way to explain it aside from the way that the ordinance is written is exactly as restrictive as the city is permitted to be without running afoul of state law and does not conflict with state law.
So what happens to the 14 and 15-year-olds?
Right.
Just to answer me that, if Captain Fortney stops a 14-year-old driving a golf cart, is that permissible under this ordinance?
No.
Even though it says in one place that it is. So if you only read that far, you would think it was okay. Until you read the next part that talks about a driver's license.
That, the only restrictions we can impose by state law is for an unlicensed driver. Doesn't say age, doesn't say anything else, it just says for unlicensed drivers. So we can, if they are licensed driver or anything else, we can't conflict or be more restrictive than the state code. They've only allowed it. There's a sentence, this only applies for unlicensed drivers.
Well, is the 14 and older in the state?
It's in the state, that's verbatim from it.
But a 14-year-old cannot get a valid driver's license. That's why I just it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're conflicted too, huh?
In my opinion, as an engineer, not an attorney, it could be stricken, and I don't see a difference because it's still covered in state law. But it clarifies.
I think it would probably, it's more, if it's an issue, to the extent that it is an issue that conflicts, it's a conflict in the state law that we don't have an ability to change.
I'm just worried about somebody reading that far and seeing 14 and older, 14 and over, should I say, 14 and over, and not continuing to read where it says must have a valid driver's license.
To be fair, the valid driver's license is the section above it. So
Okay.
if they got that far, they will have
They read it first, okay.
that portion. I'm trying to craft a way that we could change
it.
section B.
I'm trying to find it. What page is it on in our agenda packet? Does anybody know?
I got 11, parentheses C, parentheses 2.
All right, so I'm on 14, so let me go. Oh, I'm in the second ordinance. Oh, that's where I am. All right, gotcha. All right, so does anybody else feel that way about it, or is it just me? If it's just me, I'll just quit.
It's not just you.
It's just the women, right?
Just don't be.
I mean, I still feel okay with it for the fact that all the other cities in the circle have to go by the same rules and the laws, and it's working everywhere around us.
There are
It says-
three operating requirements within the Florida statute, and we're
But
amending one of them.
But it says a golf cart may not be operated on the street by any person under the age of 14.
Yeah, that's verbatim.
So what if you're 14 or 15?
Or if you don't have a driver.
And you don't have a driver's license.
But up ahead of that is, item 1 is the only item on C1 that we are altering from state law. And it's the only thing we're allowed to alter from state law. Items 2 and 3 are under the state law for operating rules. We're repeating those.
Right.
Those are the operation. We amended 1 to say, okay, if you don't have a license, we're saying you can't operate at all. That's the only thing we can really do that has any meat to this ordinance.
Think of it like this. You could take out number 2, and number 2 would still apply. It would still be a requirement because it's in state law. You could not have it in your ordinance, and people would still have to follow that.
But what is that to follow? If the one above it says you can't drive without a valid license?
It's a restatement of the law. What we're trying to do in your ordinance, and part of the legal construction of ordinances, is to protect them from future challenge.
Yes.
So to the extent that we're stating clearly that our ordinance does not conflict with the state law, our ordinance says exactly what the state law says, our ordinance is verbatim in conformity with what state law requires, that is an additional layer of protection for the city. I do understand your concerns insofar as I can see a situation in which someone could misread it, but they can't get to your earlier point, they can't get to number 2 without passing number 1.
But when they get to number 2, they're confused, just like we are. I see Mr. Barber's hand.
One of the things when staff talked about this, we had the same concern. I had to compartmentalize it and think of it in something that I work with every day. And so, let's say you look at septics. And this is how I looked at it. If the state says that you can have a septic tank, but then puts it within the caveat of the city to determine what conditions you can have a septic tank, and we say you can have a septic tank if you're so far from a connection point, or you can have a septic tank as long as you don't have the opportunity to come on with a grant. That's what this is saying. It's saying state law says 14 and up, but state law also gives the municipality in that one little small range of unlicensed driver the ability for you guys to restrict whether they can or not. And so it states the state law, but then it says that the one caveat is you guys can determine how far that age group, that unlicensed driver can go. You could say that they still could, and you could put other conditions on it, but only on that unlicensed driver. They just made the inclination, Pierce, to say they didn't think council, from some of the ones that were participating, or the one that was participating, they didn't think that that would be a good thing. And so we just said a total restriction instead of certain conditions.
So something to think about is that, I understand that we're sort of delving into an area that's a little more familiar to me than generally speaking, but there are
I know what you're saying.
Rules of construction.
I have no problem understanding what you're saying. I just think it's going to confuse people.
I can't tell you that it won't confuse anyone. I can't guarantee you that. What I am saying is, if your question to me is, what is the safest way to protect this ordinance from challenge, my answer to you is the way that it's written. If you'd like us to take it out, it doesn't, we are still not in conflict with the law, it just takes out that additional layer of protection for us.
Can you say that people that are driving under the age of 14 are in violation of this ordinance?
Can you add to?
Can you add that? Because that is the case, right?
We are saying.
I mean, they obviously, if they're under the age of, if they're even a 14-year-old won't have one.
Right.
A 15-year-old won't have a valid one.
I mean, the item in question says a golf cart may not be operated on a street by any person under the age of 14. That's the state law. We're just reiterating that state law. We just read it. There could be a special provision, per to the police department, that special provision that somebody who is 15 or 14 has a driver's license for some exemption or something. They would be excluded.
Even a restrictive, you don't get till you're 15, I don't believe.
But we're covered there. If they change the rules, it's covered.
I'm just worried about the 14 and 15-year-olds who get stopped and say, well, it says right there I'm over the age of 14.
Well, it says you.
So
they have to have a license.
Yeah. So as my understanding, going back to my law enforcement days, is that municipal ordinances and as they're enforced is that they can be more restricted than state law. And correct me if I get off track here, but they can't be less. So we can't say, well, I understand the state says you can be 14, but you know what, in Williston you can be 13. That we cannot do.
Right.
It was always my understanding, and Captain Fort, you can correct me, that municipal ordinances could be more restricted than what state statute required, which is why we have item number 1 there.
Except for this one.
For
well,
licensed drivers.
Still, yeah, so my question I think would be is if we, because it is obviously becoming very confusing on item number 2 for the parentheses 2, but if we took that out, are we, what are we doing?
If you take it out of the ordinance,
it still pertains. I know that's what you're saying.
It still pertains. The only thing that it does is, to the extent that there's ever a question, it's one less layer of security for us in a challenge of the ordinance.
Because it wasn't there.
And then what would happen if let's say it was removed, and I'm going to read it as a police officer would, and I'm going to look for Captain Fortney's advice. If it was removed and you stopped somebody in a golf cart that was 14 years old, and he said, well, by state statute, I can operate this golf cart on your city street, and you could say, well, that may be true, but we have a municipal code that says you have to be a licensed operator.
Correct. The only issue that I see is the problem is looking at the ordinance is what are the penalties for the people that don't have a license? Because if it's suspending their license, they already don't have one. So there's a lot of issues built in that whole thing. And this ordinance, some of the stuff, if I have a 75-year-old person that lost their driver's license and wants to drive a golf cart down the street, they're going to be restricted from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different stuff. So we are changing that portion of it. Yes, I mean, we have to follow what the law says. And if it says we have to have a license, that's what it's got to be. So even if whether it's there or not, the part A that says you got to have a valid license is going to be valid. I mean, that's going
But
to
do
be
you think it's confusing for the 14 and 15-year-old? Or the parents of a 14 and 15-year-old?
Through that, but it still says they have to have a license.
It does.
So if they have to have a license, they have to have a license.
Yes, ma'am. If you will, please come to the podium. I'm sorry, we have to be mic'd for the recording. Yeah.
Is it possible just to combine the two into one statement?
I was wondering the same thing myself, actually. Did you hear that, Kirsten? Can you put them both together into one statement?
So it would be number 1 includes number 1 and number 2?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That would alleviate.
So that you
your
don't
concern.
read 1 and stop, and you don't read 2 and stop.
Sure. I can absolutely do that.
And can we put number 2 first?
I think that becomes confusing.
You think that becomes confusing?
That becomes confusing.
It needs to be.
Because then you can stop at that first sentence.
I have a question. So if we leave 1, can we put 2 up after prohibited? In parentheses, say example. A golf cart may not be operated on the street by any person under 14.
I would hesitate to put it as an example, because it's not really an example, it's the law. And it's more general than just it's more broad than just an example.
And it still leaves the 14 and 15-year-old in the hole. With no license, but saying they can drive.
To the extent that if your question is, can I cut and paste on my computer number 2 to be included in number 1, absolutely.
Mr. McMillan, please come to the podium.
You could probably give us a story and everything.
Oh, sure.
Steve McMillan. I'm just reading it different, maybe.
Okay.
I golf cart in Cedar Key all the time, which is not Florida residents. We're talking worldwide. It sounds to me like if you're 14 and have a Germany license, or South Germany, whatever,
Oh.
you're good to go.
I hadn't even thought about that.
If you're Georgia, apparently not. It says Florida driver's license, but I don't know what we're going to do with anyone.
Oh, it does say valid Florida. Oh, gosh, that's a
But
problem.
the 14-year-old, to me, I'm thinking, well, I mean, there's people from all over the world.
Yeah, what if they're from Michigan or Ohio and they're in the RV park? Yeah, we need to rewrite that. Thank you. I really do appreciate that, because we do need to say a valid. We do need to say a valid driver's license from the state of residence or something of that nature. Everybody agree it should say state of residence. Thank you for that thought, Mr. Mills.
Should there be some provision for legally emancipated minors?
No, state law.
But if they're legally emancipated, they can get their driver's license, if I'm not mistaken.
If they got a license, they're good.
But what if they're only 14?
Says they can drive
Maybe they're 13.
if they have a license.
Oh, they're 14, but not 13.
I think the situation that's being presented is in the very niche remote possibility, that a 13-year-old is legally emancipated and able to get their driver's license, which I don't know whether or not that's legal, I couldn't tell you. But to the extent that it would be, then our ordinance would prohibit it.
Yeah.
As would state law.
Okay? Terrific, we're getting somewhere. Okay, so do we have, I'm seeing one over here too. Miss Crystal.
So I have another question about separating it out versus putting it together. So if you had the law versus the ordinance, this is the law, this is the statute, but under our ordinance, we are allowed to do this, or by, whatever legal wording that I can't get in my head right now, but by, these reasons, we can't, this is the ordinance. This is the law, the statute, this is the ordinance. And explain why you're allowed to state that it's a driver's license.
So we do that in the body of the ordinance which we're passing. I don't think it would be appropriate to do it in the body of the ordinance, because then we'll have an ordinance that says this is the law, but we're not really going to be in accordance with all these provisions. We're going to have different provisions because we're allowed to have these different provisions, and I think that would get.
I didn't know it was separated like that. Okay, that explains that. Thank you.
Okay, so y'all, what do y'all think? You want to leave it separate or put it together? Because it looks like it's staying no matter what.
I like it how it is. I think
You like it separate?
I mean, take Ford out, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
State of residency or something.
If I can comment, if we're gonna strike a Florida driver's license, we don't necessarily know all the different ages from a lot of places that they may be licensed from in a different state. The 14, it becomes more important, I think, to have that in there. So if you're gonna open it up to a licensed driver, but not.
Somebody Google that real quick.
Not designate Florida.
You get a valid driver's license at age 14 in any state in America.
It clarifies in the ordinance, and it restates.
I mean, they could be from Switzerland at 14 and have a valid driver's license.
Still limit the age, you still have to cause the.
All right.
You do have, it is reasonable to consider people from out of the country. You do have Gainesville, which is close by, which brings the international students.
You have an RV park, they're coming from everywhere.
And so there are a lot of different reasons to sort of keep the language.
All right.
Leave it alone.
Anything else?
Someone should have been different.
Mr. Robinson.
Chair, this one? Nope.
No.
If it's red at the top.
Chair Robinson, question. Is it my understanding that provided this passes this time, that Wright is going to do a study before it comes back for the second reading?
No.
No?
I think they're going to bring the preliminary map for second reading, and they're not going to do it until it.
But didn't the council approve $31,000 for this study?
There are three parts to this, really. Part 1A is this ordinance. 1B is verifying that the roads are adequate and safe for that, and signing them accordingly. Then, once that is done, we have to do various meetings and signage, but meetings with DOT and the county to get the crossings, and that's going to be the more time-consuming process of this. Is working with DOT to find out how can we cross the state routes, because right now you are limited to.
But that's not what we're doing with this ordinance.
It's part of our services.
It's part of your services, but it's not part of this ordinance.
Once you adopt the ordinance, now we have to then go to the DOT and the county to get approval across the roads, so you can go from one section to the other. That's going to happen.
You said when they approve the ordinance, does that mean first and second reading? Now, what if it comes back and says, well, after that study, after the second ordinance, and it says, well, you can't drive on these roads and these roads and these roads, but you've already got signs on these roads within the city.
Signs don't go up till the end.
We can sign the roads once you approve the ordinance.
The city
accepted,
streets.
The city streets can then be driven on. You can't cross.
Right.
27.
That's not even part of this ordinance.
You'll have distinct separate zones because you're bisected by either state or county roads.
Right.
You can drive on those. Once you pass this ordinance, we inspect the roads, and when the signages go up, you can go there. You can't cross 27 until we get DOT approval.
Okay, so basically what you're saying that the ordinance passes first reading and second reading, then you do the study after the fact.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, then we contact the DOT for the crossings of the state.
But you do this after after the second reading, and it is applicable. And if the DOT comes back and says no or yes or whatever,
yeah, they
Well,
could
you
say
will put
no.
the signage up before they go to, you put the signage up,
DOT's not gonna say.
no matter what
anything.
DOT says, we're muddy in the water.
The city streets, you have control over to what you can sign and what you can allow.
Right.
Golf carts, and you can do that. It's independent of DOT. They can't say yes or no to what you're deciding on right now. That's the city's decision. They can only comment on the crossing of their roads.
Right.
okay, who's going to prevent them in these different quadrants here from crossing 121, 41, or 27?
Captain Fortney. All the police officers.
Yeah. We gotta take a vote for that, sir.
Okay, that's on the record?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Thank you.
So I have a question about that.
Yes, sir.
Since Mr. Robinson brought up about like teaching and stuff. When we first started talking about this, I brought up that I would like to see it done as working with the people from the crossings and have them have an area that they can roam it. They're the ones that brought it to me to talk
Originally, they were the first people in this room about
is
it.
to do in education, meet with them, these are our rules, and then in 30 days, come back to us and say, okay, we would recommend this and this. Not necessarily mean we're gonna change it. It's easier to make changes when it's a small group of people that we're working with, instead of just rolling it out in the city,
Well,
and then we're gonna backtrack.
We're working with the neighborhoods right now because they're the ones who brought it back.
The reason why I chose the crossings, those people are gonna have golf carts that are gonna be legal.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's easier to work with them for that reason. They have a, as you know, meeting room.
Yeah.
And we can,
I think once we pass it, we can go there and educate them and tell them they can only stay in their quadrant for right now.
right.
Something to keep in mind, I want to make very clear, is that this ordinance, if this ordinance passed on first and second reading, until we sign the street, there are no golf carts anywhere.
Absolutely.
You'll see golf carts in the exact same places you've always seen them and nowhere else until the street is signed.
Right.
And we could go 3 years without ever signing a street if we chose. We wouldn't want to do that because that would not be a good use of our time. But until the street is signed, there's no change that is made. This ordinance gives us the authorization to change it upon an appropriate amount of work being done to get us there.
Right, and after we've signed it and they're driving in their own quadrants, Mr. Nickel is gonna go to DOT and try to get crossing areas. And at that point, we'll have to come back to this ordinance and we'll have to amend it in order to allow them to cross, because this one does not allow them to cross.
That's correct.
One step at a time. Right now,
That's
we're just
right.
wanting to drive circles in our neighborhood.
That's right.
That's all we're wanting to
They wanna go from one neighborhood to the next neighborhood on their quadrant.
Only is 27.
Right, only in their
Or
part.
41, we got 27, 41, 121. Mr. Witt, I see your hand.
Not that you want to hear anything about cheating.
I do. I know they're ahead of us, so I
Yeah,
do.
they adopted their golf cart ordinance, and at the time, they had a Florida Department of Transportation official that was attending every meeting. So they asked him to go back to their state traffic operations center and ask them if they could cross any federal or state highway. And he came back and said, no, you cannot.
I remember that, and they were already doing it, and they called them doing it.
Yeah, they
That's the
called
reason
them.
they were there.
Yeah, so now nobody's doing it.
Right. And they have 2 RV parks, one on each side, one behind Walmart, one across the 19 from Walmart, and they were both going back and forth across US 19, 4 lanes of highway, and they caught them. It's the reason they were there.
They were crossing US 129 too.
And 129 as well?
Yeah.
No.
We think that deals.
Yeah. Mr. Barber?
You had asked about the ages?
Yes.
So I was just returning your answer.
Oh, thank you.
So the countries with the lowest driving ages, 17 and below, are Australia, the Bahamas, Canada, Malaysia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, the United States, and Zimbabwe. In some jurisdictions, the United States, Canada, drivers can be as young as 14. but this requires parental supervision by a licensed driver.
Yeah, the same with the United States.
Correct.
15 with a parent
So
in the car.
no other countries, all the other countries that are listed are age 18 or age 23.
Cool. Mr. Bullock, did I hear your mic? No? I'm sorry, just yell next time.
I had one more comment.
Yes, sir, of course.
To your comments, there are provisions in DOT's code and design code where a golf cart can cross the state. There are provisions.
Oh, sure.
And we have 2 of the 3 we think we can prove to them.
They have to
that
be
we,
signaled, is that right?
Yeah, we can create that. There's some other problems as we go east on 27 by the railroad track, but there's some provisions with some improvements. We could do a wider sidewalk that can cross the railroad tracks and go parallel and things like that, where we can open up some of these quadrants.
Cool.
So there are options out there. Whether we're going to be able to open up all the crossings of the state routes within Williston, I won't say that, but we see there are opportunities for that to happen. But we have to work with them.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Thank
there are
you.
those opportunities.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for first reading of ordinance. What is this? I don't even know. I have to go back. 2023-709.
I'll make a motion that we approve the first reading of ordinance 2023-709.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion or comment?
I do have a quick comment.
Yes,
quick,
ma'am.
super quick.
You're good.
We don't currently have a section designated for this ordinance. So the question to you all, and you don't have to answer it right now, but by the time we get to second reading, we need to have an idea of where we want to put this ordinance. You can put it in a section all by itself. You can put it in with your traffic section of your code. So I can present you with a couple of different options if you'd like me to, but those are really the questions, is do you want to incorporate it into an already existing part, or do you want to make it its own separate section in your code? We will need to answer that question before we get to second reading so that Latricia
I
knows
say make
where
it
to put
separate
it.
so you can find it really easy.
Section 64 it is.
Yes, Mr. Ross.
I voted against this a month ago when we brought it up. We were tied.
Yes, we were.
2 of us here went one way, 2 the other way. My objections are stated back then, and I don't think I need to go through them again. Needless to say, I would be remiss if I changed my vote. So I'm not. I'm going to continue to vote against it because I think it presents a lot of problems, a lot of issues that are going to come up, not to mention accidents and injuries, which we always hate to see that, and we do the best we can.
Yeah, I hope not.
So my vote is going to be no.
Okay. Any further discussion from anyone? All right, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Hey,
Motion carries. All right, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting for second reading. All right, move on then to item item C. First reading of ordinance 2023-710, an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, establishing a golf cart parking permit program in accordance with applicable Florida law, repealing all ordinance in conflict, and providing an effective date. City Manager Rivard, Attorney Baloo.
Again, that's the second part of the other ordinance on the parking, as far as where golf carts can park and how they can park in the city. It may be easier just to let Walt come up and explain it, and go from there.
Yeah, give us the synopsis.
So going back to the golf cart ordinance, we had envisioned various restrictions, registration, coming into the police department, getting inspected and so on. So that was kind of the grand vision when we started this, that was the direction that we got from the city on that they wanted that. But state law, that prohibits any of that from happening. You just can't do it. They specifically say you can't do that. And again, the only thing one little out was that we could do something for unlicensed drivers. That was it. So that put all those other things aside. We did come up with the only other way we found that we saw we could add some type of a check on the safety of the golf carts, the knowledge of the people using them, was this ordinance of at least requiring them, if they're gonna park on city property, a city parking lot, that they get a parking registration, an annual registration. We talked about how that could happen. They get it inspected by the police department. The police department has an opportunity to interact with the people. They get that fee. It's an annual thing, and at least there's a educational standpoint to it. There's a safety check, and so that's how this ordinance came about. We can't impose this on private property, so the breadth of this is limited. But it was the only other way we could find within the state law that allowed to give you an additional safety check on this. And so that is how this got proposed. You didn't ask us to do this, but as we saw we couldn't do the restrictions of one ordinance, we felt that this was the only other way. If there was a more restrictive way, we'd love to hear it. We haven't come up with another way. So that's the history of this and why we're proposing.
I think it's a good alternative.
So,
To Mr. Nichols' point, it's actually ingenious the way that they came up with this. I was actually thoroughly impressed by the creative approach that was taken to sort of get us to where we were. To sort of build off of that, just to clarify, the previous ordinance that you just looked at governs the operation of golf carts. And really the statute only allows us to govern operation in the way that we have done it, which is regarding unlicensed drivers. The ordinance that you're looking at now has nothing to do with operation of golf carts and everything to do with parking of golf carts. So just keep that in mind as we're moving forward, that if these provisions were in the exact same, if they related to the operation, they would not be permitted. So this is really the only way that you get these restrictions if you want them.
Okay, perfect. I heard glowing praise there. You should be very happy with that. Okay. All right, so any questions about this ordinance? Mr. Mayor, any further comment? Or have you made it already?
I've made it already. Look forward to a veto and overrule.
Okay, wonderful. Y'all can work on him. All right, I guess we'll entertain a motion for approval on first reading of ordinance 2023-710.
I'll make a motion that we approve first reading of ordinance 2023-710.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Hey,
Motion carries. All right, thank you.
If
We
I
will
could-
see that again on our next agenda as well.
And if I could just add to the comments, this kind of came out in some brainstorming with Chief Rolls in his office after several meetings with staff. So, Chief was involved in this brainstorm here too. So
Right.
there was a lot of people.
Where is he tonight?
That participated in this.
He had
Is he okay?
been previously engaged with.
He's all right.
Not yet.
Oh, that's good, as long as he's not under the weather. All right, tell him we missed him. Item D, second reading of ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance of the city of Williston, Florida, providing for a permanent closing of an unapproved road right-of-way just north of the Drummond Seacoast Bank driveway, adjacent to US Highway 41 in Williston, Florida, lying south of and within parcel ID 04332-00-00, and a description as outlined in ordinance 561, page 717 of the public record of Levy County, finding that the closing of the road right-of-way will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, providing for a repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. Ms. Jones.
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding.
Yes, I got to read that. I thought it was. I got it right here. Let me read it. All right, you'll have to listen to me. Isn't that terrible? I have it. Of course, in my hand. All right, I will ask for disclosure from the council members of any ex parte communication. We did this on the last time. Again, we pretty much all know where this is, so we pretty much all visited the site. But has anyone had any conversation with any property owner or that sort of thing about this property? No? Okay, I will ask anyone who is going to speak to this to please stand and be sworn in by the city clerk who is coming in the door.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, also the clerk will take custody of any exhibits. If you present any exhibits, diagrams, photographs, or any evidence that you would like to present, you should give it to the city clerk, who will keep them for 30 days in case of any appeal. I will ask for the staff's presentation at this time. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. This is a vacation of a road that's located in a property that we all know now as Laurel Point. It's the property located behind the old Winn-Dixie. I'm going to go ahead and just give it to Steve to explain why we need to vacate this road, because he is going to be writing the plats.
Hello, Steve McMillan. It's behind the current Winn-Dixie.
Oh.
The old Winn-Dixie. Yes.
Got your Radio Shack.
Radio Shack. Well, I got here an hour early and came unprepared with nothing in my hands.
We're so sorry.
I'm going from what we talked about last time. It's obviously, it's a funny word, road right-of-way vacation, but there's no road in it. There's no trail road, there's no nothing. So it's a piece of property that historically was given by owners of my client's property. I think I came up with 25 years ago. It wasn't utilized like the city thought it was going to be, and now we kind of need it back so that we can go forward with our subdivision.
Okay, and on the map, it's the part that's hash lined, and the part that goes across it's got the hash marks in it as well. That's the road that we're talking about, both sections. I only know that because we had it on last reading, and it was pointed out to me then. Any questions for Mr. McMillan? My only question is, usually when we vacate a road, and it may be that both sides of this road are owned by the same owner? No. Okay. So Drummond Seacoast owns part of it?
They own 30 feet
They own.
south of my strip that's running east and west.
Okay, so do they get half of this property?
We gave up 20 feet. We being Mr. Henry, gave up 20 feet. It's not a shared. Perkins gave up 30, we gave up 20, we're just taking our 20 back. They can have their 30 back if they choose to come through this process. In a record plat, say you have a connector road, at that point both people would gain to their center line. So
Right.
each side of the street
That's
would
what I'm
gain
used to.
their half of the, but in this case, we gave up 20. We're not going to give 10 back to someone who didn't own it to begin with. We get our 20 back.
But there's
It's kind of like being on
another,
the edge of a plat when there's a road.
but there's another 20 that they could get
Another
back.
30 that they
Another
have.
30.
They have.
I really feel like we need to ask them if they want it. And I'll tell you that I heard through the grapevine, you know how the city is. I heard through the grapevine that they heard about this and that they said that they owned part of the land. So I'm thinking they might want it back.
They can call my office.
Although they haven't really told me that. I heard it from someone else who told me that. But I don't know how we can give it to one property owner when there's two who gave it.
Just as a clarification, because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, any fact that's not presented under oath really should not be taken into consideration by the council.
Even when I'm saying it. Is that what you're saying?
Even when you're saying it, yes.
Especially when you're saying it.
Yeah, that would be, it would be considered an ex parte communication because it is regarding this ordinance itself and regarding this piece of property is the communication that was had. The purpose of the ex parte communications rule is such that we acknowledge any conversations that we've had regarding the property, and we also acknowledge that any decision we're making on this particular ordinance is not based on any facts that we've learned outside of this proceeding.
Okay, well then I guess I need to say that someone came to my office and told me that they thought the bank was interested in it. It wasn't anybody that was associated with the bank.
Right. So, and to clarify, you would have to recuse yourself from the vote if you're not, if you think that that will influence how you're going to vote on this, because it hasn't been presented as fact under oath, and so because it is a quasi-judicial proceeding, that's sort of the rules that we have.
Okay, I was told that their attorney was coming to the office. Did they, Ms. Jones, did the bank's attorney not come to the office? Okay. I was told that they were, so.
I might not understand the question, but if the bank in Whitehurst chose to close their 30 feet, they would gain their 30 feet. We would just have to go through the same process that we're going through now.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I definitely recuse myself, because I did have a conversation with someone not associated with the bank about that.
And it will impact the way that you vote on this?
I don't know that it would. I was just going to ask that we table it till we find out. But if you think
Safest is to recuse.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that.
Okay.
I have no problem doing that.
And Latricia can provide you with the form that you'll have to fill out.
Because I just don't want to take it from them if they want it.
Wait a minute.
We're
not taking from the bank.
No, they just might want it back.
They gave 30 feet.
Yep.
My client gave 20, so
Right.
there's 50 total.
Right.
We're asking for our 20 back. They can ask for their 30 back, but no one's taking from anybody else.
But if you vacate it, you're asking that we vacate the whole thing,
30's
aren't
not
you?
No, I'm only vacating my 20 feet.
You're only vacating your 20
My
feet.
client can only vacate what he gave. That's why I said if Perkins or whatever they're now,
Seacoast, yeah.
in Whitehurst want to come to me, we can then vacate their 30 feet and they would get theirs back that they gave up 20-some years ago. So we're not taking anything from anybody.
So that's not all of it.
This is only the 20-foot strip
Okay.
for my client. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I thought it was all of it.
Nope.
Got it. Ms. Jones.
A part of the process of these is that we send out letters to the neighbors, so the bank probably got the letter. They should know. It's also in the paper, so it's a public hearing. So that's probably where they found out about it.
I don't know. I sit at a desk and somebody walked in the door and talked to me about it.
And that's why they're, we tell them to come to these. We tell them when the hearings are.
There you go.
Right. Okay. Do you have any other witnesses to call, Ms. Jones? All right, and you're representing the applicant. And the city's the applicant.
No, I'm representing a community plantation as the owner of that.
Okay, so you've made your opening statement as well. Do you have any witnesses other than yourself? Okay.
Just me.
Just you. Would any one of you like to cross-examine any of your witnesses? I'm just reading the paper here. Okay. I would ask for a closing statement by the applicant.
Thank you.
I would ask for a closing statement by the staff.
The city staff sees no reason why not to vacate this old road.
Is there any rebuttal from the applicant?
Golf cart.
Golf cart. Discussion by the council.
I do want to make a quick clarification while we're, before we start council discussion. I think it's been brought to me, we've done a couple of vacations since my firm has started working for the city. It's our standard practice that the way that we write our vacation ordinances is such that the individual who's receiving the land is responsible for paying for the preparation and recording of the quitclaim deed. I think that that's been something that's sort of lost in translation. So I just wanted to make it clear to all involved. Our office is happy to do it. Our in-house real estate attorney charges between $400 and $500 depending on the complexity. So that's just something to consider, is that it's our office's general practice in our other municipalities that the city not pay for the preparation or recording of the deed since they're not receiving the land.
Okay. Perfect. Any other discussion? I entertain a motion.
We discussed it last
Entertain a motion for second reading of ordinance 2023-12.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance 2023-12.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I will recuse myself on the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Thank you, Ms. Jones. We will close the public hearing. Item E is discussion with possible action of Project Cottage at the airport. City Manager Stiegel.
We got a raise.
Oh my
And a
gosh.
promotion all in one.
Wow, airport manager.
You can absolutely keep that title. I don't want that title.
We'll talk about rumor, we'll get there.
I'm very happy where I'm at. Project Cottage is something that the airport is looking at. We've had some discussion out at the airport and here at City Hall. Basically tonight what we're looking for is a consensus to move forward with a developer's agreement and putting together a land lease. So I don't want to steal all of Max's thunder with talking about what the project is, but he does have a couple of handouts for you. It's actually a very, very interesting concept. And one of the things I would like to note is that the location that we've picked out on the airport is the old fairgrounds. So it's a really great spot to develop this project. We've actually had, we already have the survey and legal description in hand and have it broken down into a couple of different sections for first rights of refusal. So it's a really well thought out plan and concept. We've had, some initial discussions. And it's looking really promising on our end. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Max and let him tell you about his project and Project Cottage.
Hi, how you guys doing? I'm Max Vegas Sands. So those 3D printed models are basically examples of modules that we're going to be using to build homes. All right, so I'm a GC. I've been a GC since 2016. Before that, I worked for 6 years as a superintendent. And the time it took to build houses it's just crazy, right? And there's got to be a better way to do it. In the 70s, it took 4 months to build a house. Now it takes 9. So we've had very, very little advancement in construction. So my idea is to build out a catalog of modules that you can put together, and you can do affordable housing for workforce housing, and we'll be putting those houses out in about 3 weeks. All of our modules are the same sizes, so you can mix and match. There's 7 different ones there. We have 15 that we've designed, and you can mix and match from a 1-1, 2-2, 3-2, 4-2, and the house up on the screen there is a 4-3. I'm not sure what you guys are looking at there, but that's a 4-3 built out of those modules, and as you go through it, it'll show how it breaks up. So what we're looking for is a place to call home and build our factory at. So that's how I reached out to Ben, and we've met out at the property. The idea would be to build the factory out in 3 phases. Start off with something where we do about 100 homes a year, get up to building about 500 homes a year, and eventually do 2,000 homes a year out of that facility. So.
Wow. That's exciting. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
What is your name again?
Max.
Max.
Yeah.
How appropriate. Max, I've looked at on the PowerPoint presentation that we were given. I find the concept very interesting.
Thank you.
These modules don't have a floor in them, do they?
They will. They'll have a floor and a ceiling.
So will all of these modules be built on a raised foundation, or are you planning to sell these to someone that puts a slab down and then you bring your modules in?
No, it'll be on a slab. Well, you'll be able to do either pier and beam or on a slab. They're going to be self-sufficient. They're not like a manufactured home. These will be built to Florida building standards for homes.
Right, I got the difference there. I know a little bit about it.
So you could actually put them on stilts.
You can if you want.
That's where I'm going, because if you're putting them on a slab, are you putting a floor and then setting that floor on a slab?
Yes.
Okay, that explains what was so questionable to me. If you're going to put it on a slab, traditional carpentry is you don't waste money putting a floor on top of the slab.
Right.
You're overgoing that, and you're putting a floor on top of a slab.
Yeah. So it's not traditional, right?
I agree. Nonetheless, I find it very interesting.
We need to build them, so the hardest part is getting them to be rigid enough for transport. And if we don't do that in the factory, it makes it very hard to transport and pick them up with a crane, set them. We're gonna try to stick to three stories and down.
Okay.
But some of the equipment that we have on order that'll start arriving towards the end of the year actually can go up to 9 stories.
Oh, wonderful! That's what we need. This second floor module, since you say they're all interchangeable, are you telling me that somebody took my playhouse?
We're building a house. We're building it now.
May I borrow your playhouse? Yeah.
We're building a house down here. What do you mean?
Okay. The second floor modules, these floors are going to be designed for floor load with the Florida Building Code. So you can take any one of these modules and stack it on top, and they must all be made out of 2x12 bottom?
They're gonna be light gauge steel, but yes.
Steel?
Yeah.
Hi, a new thing in the mix.
Light gauge steel.
When you're going up, you have to thicken the walls to hold the support?
It depends how high we go up. So
And
we're gonna
15
stick.
stories?
Yes. So one of the reasons we're gonna stick to 3 stories and down for now is because we're gonna get them rated through the state to be able to do all of our inspections in-house, and they'll approve each module. Right? They'll give us a label for each one, similar to how a manufactured home would be. So we're gonna have them approved to go up to 3 stories. If we're only doing 1 story, it'll be overkill, but the cost associated to getting them approved for
Everything just for a change.
Right.
I got you, brother.
Square footage of each one of these.
253 square feet. 12 by 24.
You could go on a cruise, and that's your cabin.
Hunting cabin.
Yeah. Now we know where he's going.
So
Gonna sell them one at a time.
they're all done to infill housing specs for affordable housing. So all the room sizes, bathroom sizes, closets, everything is done to be able to
Handicap accessible.
Section 8.
So the kitchen, the bathrooms, they all meet the ADA. The kitchen, one of the kitchen modules that we do would require removing a cabinet, but everything else makes ADA.
Very interesting concept. Where did
Thank
you
you.
come up with this idea?
A lot of time in a construction site and seeing how long it would take.
Okay.
I want to know if you have a factory anywhere else.
No, this will be the first factory.
And you chose us. I'm so happy.
So I have a place about 12 minutes down on 318.
That explains it.
Yeah. So
A place means a dwelling, a home?
yeah, we have a farm out there.
Okay. We have 2 kitchens down here, by the way. If anybody needs a kitchen, we'd be glad to pass you one.
We have a kitchen. We'll loan you a bedroom.
Which
Or
kitchen?
no, a living
How about
room.
this one right here?
Just to relax.
This one right here is not a kitchen. Anybody else need a kitchen?
You need a bedroom?
Here's the kitchen right here.
So
Sorry, we're
these
having fun.
modules, how could I buy them for my squirrels?
We're not there yet.
I'll print some for you on the 3D printer.
Okay, so you're interested in the Levy County Fair, old Levy County Fair site.
Yes.
I think it's about 25, 26 acres, the whole site? Plus or minus, okay, so you may go over, not much to go over. 100? Where are you going to?
Under.
Oh, it's hard to say.
Not the entirety of the property.
Okay, I think the whole thing's like 26.
If you go to one of the last slides, there's actually a map with the first directory of people on there. So the section outlined in red is gonna be the initial site footprint. And then as Max and his team continues to expand and perform and move on, we're going to execute first rights of refusal for sections B and C. So it's a really good way to allow him to come in, establish a footprint, proof of concept, and then, expand the operation as required.
So that's the other end, isn't it? That's not the Horseman's Park end, that's the other end.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the
So,
Shadow Traders
to answer your
end.
question before you ask it.
Yeah.
That will give us some time for the Independence Day parking.
No, I wasn't gonna ask that. I was just looking, he's got access to the water main right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's where the water comes in.
That was one of the reasons why
Yep.
we set it up.
Because that's, when we did the fairgrounds, that's where the water comes in. The city connection is right there.
And you have no problem with explosions over your building, right? On 4th of July?
That's my birthday, so
Oh, right.
I'll bring some of the
I like it
fireworks.
more and more.
Don't worry, they're on this end, not that end. Okay, so, what else do we need to know from Max? Any questions for him? How about the concept? Are you interested in the concept? That's what they want to know to go forward.
It's just what Williston needs, something just like that. I like it.
I've seen in magazines this certain thing where the house comes delivered of flatbeds and use a crane and they just set them like Legos.
It's getting very big on the West Coast. We were out there for the Builders Show in February, and there was a house that we spoke to the gentleman. They had brought it from South Carolina to Las Vegas.
Wow.
It took them 2 days to put it together in the factory, 3 days on site. It was a
Unbelievable.
1,500 square foot home, and that's a custom home. So a lot of the modular companies, they take these homes and they chop them up into modules, and each house is different. My idea is to create the modules that we can put together so that I can get each one of those as efficient as possible, as cheap as possible, so we can use it for affordable housing.
And it was South Carolina factory that they were talking about.
Yeah,
That built these.
Impressa Modular.
And it looked fantastic. It was a custom home.
Yeah, they're beautiful homes, and you cannot tell that it's a modular home from the outside.
Okay, so we have consensus. We have consensus for them to proceed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
I fully support you. and
there you go.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Exciting. We'll look forward to hearing from you again. Discussion with possible action, sale of property at 412 Southeast 4th Drive. City Manager Brevard.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'll allow also Laura, she may want to jump in here anytime too, but this particular piece of property is a small portion of property. So this is a piece of property that's a small portion of property that the city owns. Actually, a gentleman approached the city because he wants to put in a mobile home there, or a house, and basically the land is not big enough for both. So basically what we're doing, or he proposed to us, was to purchase our little small section of that property for the sum of $1,000.
Okay, any questions for the city manager?
Laura, you got anything else to add?
I can answer any questions you have about the property. Yes, sir.
Did I see on your notice that he had paid that exact same $1,000 for the other part of the property? And that's how you came up with the valuation?
No, sir, I think he paid
No, this
a
is,
little over $5,000 for the property.
$5,000 for the other part?
yeah, this is just the property appraisers for, they valued it at $1,000.
Mhm.
That's what's in our packet.
Yeah.
The property appraiser
Right.
did the valuation, now that's.
Yes, sir, it was the fair market value.
And did I understand that we have no use for that property?
That's correct, sir. There was a time when we did have this on our plans, but now that we don't own both parcels, both portions, there's nothing we can do. So,
That was what I took away, that
Yeah.
there really isn't nothing we can do with the property.
right, and he would like to put a home there, and we'd rather have that than a vacant property.
And I think the actual size is like 0.02
Yeah,
or something like that. It's extremely small piece of property.
Yeah.
You could put one of these little modules on it.
Maybe.
No, we don't allow homes that small.
Ah,
It's under the minimum size. Maybe we need to change that too. All right, so, any further discussion?
No, I say we move forward with it.
Yeah.
Better
All
to keep
right.
the property sitting
Okay,
around.
so I'll entertain a motion.
I have a brief question.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So sorry. Ooh, tough crowd. The question I have is regarding whether or not we surplus this. Have we named this surplus property?
We didn't know that this was an issue until recently, and I didn't think we should surplus it because it's landlocked.
It's non-buildable.
So I didn't want to bid it out and have somebody try to bid on it and then I guess I could just tell people it's landlocked and non-buildable. But it will complete his parcel so he can build on it.
I definitely agree with you that this seems like a ideal situation. What I will note, two things. One, technically by our rules, we should surplus it before we sell it. We need to. It sounds like we've gotten a designation from Public Works that we don't need this for any kind of utility or anything like that. When we bid it out, you do run the risk of perhaps it would come in for under $1,000. I will also note that generally speaking, you
Can put a minimum bid on it.
you could put a minimum bid on it if you decided to do that. And it's also important to note that the property appraiser's market value is typically about 70% of the actual value that you could get for a piece of property. Now, given that this property, you can't build on it by itself, that could distinctly lessen the value, so it may be worth less than $1,000. I just want to put those thoughts out there to the council for your consideration.
I mean, if we go back to him and tell him that we have to surplus it per our rules, and that we'll take a minimum bid of $1,000. We can do it by the book.
We would need to definitely make sure that we make it really clear in the documents that whoever purchases this land cannot build on it.
Not whoever.
Not buildable lot.
Except for him.
Right.
Unless you have the
Unless
adjoining.
you have adjacent land.
That lot. What
Yes.
about the
So
lot
I
to the
guess-
side?
Yeah, what about the guy on the other side? What if he decides he wants it?
Then that would leave this man with an unbuildable lot.
Right. No, it would be easy for him to do, but possibility.
I believe we've gone to them in the past and asked them if, I believe, I don't have it in writing, but I've been told by multiple sources that we've gone to all the neighbors of both of these parcels, and nobody was ever interested in purchasing either one, on all sides.
Okay? So, do we want to give those directions to Ms. Jones? Do we need
Can
to
we not do it without,
surplus them?
can we not just sell it to this person without having to do it? I know.
I think it has to be
There's no
surplus.
way to just sell it.
Based on the way that your rules are written, before getting rid of any property, it needs to be surplused by the city designation that we don't need it for anything, and then think of it like this council may agree that this is the best use of it, but if we could get $1,001 if we put it out to bid, then that's $1,001 for the public money. This is public land, and so it's a consideration that we just have to follow.
I just hate the idea of the guy on the other side who finds out he can spend $1,000 and keep from having an extra neighbor.
I don't disagree with you. We could put in the documents that there can be other considerations. It wouldn't just be perhaps the highest bid. It would be highest bid and best use.
There you go.
Something
sounds
like that.
Mr. Bullock, if that did occur, then we would lose the tax revenue on what's supposed to be a new home.
Okay, so
Can
you make it highest use, highest bid, best use? Okay, Mr. Penny?
Can you just donate it?
No. How would that be best use? No,
We can make money, that would be.
we can't give it, we can't give city property away. We can sell it. Okay, do we need a motion on that? Or you want that to come back after it's surplus?
I think it would be appropriate for it to come back after it's
Okay,
surplus,
I
after
thought
we've
so
got the
too, but I
documents
wasn't sure.
out, get it back, and then the
Okay,
city can survey.
so we will have instructed her to do that, and she'll bring it back to us when she's ready for the sale. Okay, resolution 2023-09, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, establishing authorization for the Williston City Council President to sign an agreement for project-specific professional consulting services for city engineering services with Wright Pierce, Inc., and provide an effective date. Ms. Jones. Hello.
I have a lot more on here tonight than I thought.
It's on page 40.
Thank you.
40 to 49. I gotta find it too.
So as you remember, the City of Williston entered into an agreement with the Department of State to receive funding for improvements at the Cornelius Williams Sports Complex. Included in the agreement was funding for engineering design for $35,000 and permitting for $7,605, which was a total of $42,605. We asked Wright Pierce to come up with a number for us to do the engineering. And when they got involved, they realized that we were a little bit remiss on a couple of the permits that we're gonna need. The Swift Mud permit is gonna be $64.50, and we have some Levy County approvals. So, we actually need, let me see what the total was.
Because all the permits out there come from the county, don't they?
So for them to do the project initiation, investigations, and coordination is gonna be $12,650. Site design is gonna be $26,050. And then we have the Swift Mud permitting, Levy County approvals, and the bidding phase services. So $64.50 and $19.80 for Swift Mud and wetland study will come out of the stormwater, professional services, and other budget, because it would have to come out of there anyway. And $33.75 for coordinating with Levy County on zoning use will come out of the planning and zoning budget. So we do have a little bit of a balance of $10,995.
That's not in the grant.
Right.
That's what you're saying. All right. And there's no way around that. That's what it costs. Mr. Barber, the first thing you have to do is get up and turn up the air conditioner.
It's up all the way. It's like at 77, I promise you.
Well, it's pumping out cold air like crazy.
I just wanted to mention that the revenue.
I'm kidding.
That the revenue we're talking about. We've got it.
You think I'm kidding?
the thing that we mentioned is the revenue we're talking about. Council on the last budget, because of House Bill 53. Remember, we funded stormwater department, and we had put funds in there.
Yep.
We have not utilized those funds. This is the first opportunity to utilize those funds, and this is one of the reasons why council thought, this is a good reason to create this fund. So the resources that we're addressing would be out of the stormwater that were budgeted.
I hope so. That's what I wanted to do. So my question is it an extra $10,995?
It would not come from the grant. It would come from the stormwater
But
fund.
it's not over and above the dollar amounts that she's listed.
It's $10,000 over.
Over the grant, but not over the stormwater budget.
The stormwater budget's $50,000.
We're just pulling it out.
We're just pulling it out.
So we have other budgets instead of the grant budget that we're
Right.
asking
Yes.
to pull some money out of.
Okay.
Planning and zoning is one of them for $33.75. And then $64.50 and $19.80 will come out of professional services and other
Okay.
for stormwater.
And all those three figures add up to the $10,995?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I was afraid it was over and above what you had
No,
listed.
ma'am, I'm just
That's
asking.
what I'm asking. Is it
Yeah,
over and
no, I'm
above?
just asking to pull it out of other budgets.
Okay. And Mr. Bloom, has he?
Mr. Bloom hasn't been available.
I know he hasn't been available, but have you had any discussions with him about this at all?
We had briefly had discussions with him initially. He said he would get back with us. He did admit that the stormwater budget is there.
Right.
He did admit that we haven't used any of it. And we're waiting to hear back if the stormwater budget, with, I guess we all like to say, our smoke and mirrors, If it was put in the budget
Was it
and
designated
funded,
as
or if it was put in the budget and not funded. So that is the only question we have to
Okay.
answer. And that would, regardless of the answer, that would either be it had been budgeted or it would be coming out of the reserve that was required to be encumbered in order to create the line in the budget. So the money's there, it just depends on whether or not it's coming out of the revenue or whether it's coming out of the reserve. Is the indication he gave, and he wasn't able to provide that answer because he had an unfortunate
Right, yes, he did.
event.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Jones or Mr. Barber, or Mr. Bishop? Mr. Witt?
This is the $400,000 grant that's gonna be used. Do you know what it's gonna be used for yet, or is that part of what's happening here?
Yes, it's in the packet. It's in the
Do you know
packet.
exactly what facility?
I'm gonna get there with it too, so I can tell you, because I'm not real happy with what we're spending it on. We're not really doing anything with it. That's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? Which is not what we're here to discuss, but it's the first time we've laid eyes on it.
We're getting the infrastructure. And
Yeah.
in order to build out the master plan, we had to do infrastructure first.
I
And
know.
Walt's more equipped to answer the question on that.
Yes. Have y'all all looked at that? And it gets us parking lots and fences and maybe some water lines but it doesn't get any structures or any buildings.
No, ma'am, we had to get the
Or any
infrastructure.
basketball courts or any softball or bleachers or none of that's in this for. That's a
Okay.
lot of money to not get any of that.
Well, you gotta build the infrastructure before you can build on it.
I know, but that's a huge disappointment.
You could build the buildings and then take them away and then do the infrastructure and put them back.
I mean, I feel like maybe we should do part of the infrastructure and part of the buildings. So at
Ma'am, I
least-
cannot change that grant.
Did you only have the infrastructure in the grant?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, gee. Well, then obviously we can't do anything else about it.
No, ma'am.
The grant specific as to what they're paying for, this is a phase one, first step of the overall park. And
I realize that.
parking, it's improving, it's providing parking, it's providing, walkway to the existing restroom. Eventually that will change.
Right,
But-
making the restrooms ADA.
Yeah, you're gonna tear it down sooner or later.
We're doing a master.
Yeah, but you gotta we're making the bathrooms ADA friendly from the parking.
Yeah, but all
lots.
those things we're looking at right there, none of those are getting built with the money.
That's correct.
Okay, so this
Yeah.
grant was meant for
So
accessibility and safety. So we're
I know
opening up the back, we're opening up so that there's actual parking, because the DOT won't even give me a sign that says park because they don't believe it's a park. So we have to have certain things to have something called a park, and you have to have parking lots, and you have to have accessibility to bathrooms on sidewalks, not through grass, so that the wheelchairs can get there, and you have to have safety, which will be
Fencing.
our fences.
Yeah, but I don't think you're building the bathrooms in this.
We're getting
not in this
sidewalks
phase.
to the bathrooms.
Not the new.
Not the new ones, you're gonna tear the old ones down once you get to it.
And something else is gonna go there.
Yeah, so the sidewalk won't be to
So,
the bathroom,
so
is
Mrs.
what I'm trying to say.
Jones, so Mrs. Jones, when we were up in Tallahassee, we actually had this discussion with the panel that the state, the Department of State appointed.
Yep.
And when we initially got there, we were, they do a beginning ranking, and then when you present, they change your ranking based on how
Yes.
the panel scores you.
I'm aware.
The panel came back and moved us up like 24 places, and they knew exactly what our presentation was, what we intended, and their thought was that that's the only reason why they moved us up, because they said if we tried to go for the fields and all this other stuff without doing the infrastructure and the foundation first, they felt that the money would be squandered. So they did that based on the knowledge of the fencing, securing the site, getting the parking, and all those things. I don't believe we would have acquired the grant if we hadn't addressed this subject first.
I agree with that statement, except I don't know where we're gonna get another $500,000 to do the rest of it.
Well, we can keep coming back for the grant.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody, any other questions for them?
I say let's
This
get
is
phase one done.
Huh?
Let's get phase one.
This is the
done.
engineering, yeah.
You gotta start somewhere, and that's.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2023-09.
I move that we approve resolution 2023-09.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item H, Resolution 2023-19, a resolution for the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, appointing Mr. Art Constantino to the Community Redevelopment Agency for a 4-year term beginning March 17, 2023, and ending March 16, 2027, and providing an effective date. Ms. Jones.
So I brought this back at your request, and I have an attachment there as a letter from Mr. Constantino explaining his business and how he does business downtown. I asked him to be here tonight, and he's not.
You know, that kind of, when people are asking us to do something, they should be here. Because if we have questions, like for instance, looking over at his business, are you gonna keep paper up over your windows?
Yeah, it's an empty building.
Because to me, that's empty. If we're doing that, you know, all that over there, redoing it all.
I did notice that he bought a city license because you called him and asked to, you know, express that to him. So he did buy a license after we discussed it at the last meeting. So this is up to y'all.
And he did what we asked.
Ms. Jones, do you know if he plans to keep the paper up over the windows? Or is he gonna put some of he works with water softener systems. Is he gonna have some stuff set up in there that people can see?
So from what I understand from the letter, it says he no longer really needs a retail building.
Right, that's what it says. It doesn't need.
So it's not a storefront per se, where he would stay all day and sell parts. But he says he does have on-call hours.
Right, I read that.
But I do not know about the paper on the windows.
So in the CRA, what does it say exactly? Does it say active business or does it say own a business? What does it say? I know you think you read it to me last time, but I can't remember.
It says own a business in the city of Williston. That's the requirements.
That's exactly what it says. All right, so it's up to y'all.
So he's not breaking any rules.
Right.
He's got a storefront and
He owns a building. I guess he owns a business now that he bought a license. He didn't own a business before.
Let me put it
Well,
like
he
this.
does have a business. Nikki can't give a city business license without a real business on Sunbiz.
Yeah, you gave that
So
to
he
us
has to check that.
last time.
So, to clarify, I think my opinion is that there are sufficient facts that you could reappoint him if you wanted to, although you're certainly within your right to not reappoint him. But these are the same facts that we've been dealing with Mr. Constantino and his business for quite a while now here on the CRA. So I don't anticipate the situation will change. I don't think Laura has any indication that the situation will change. And so those are just things to keep in mind. You can really go either way and be perfectly within your right.
Thank you for that.
And I noticed in here, he put down that I'm allowed to create another and many fictitious names under my LLC. And of course, if I used a new name, we would be notified. So he could just change his name whenever he wants to.
He does. That's why he put that there.
All right, so do we have a motion? Or we don't have a motion?
I was not here at the last meeting, so I'm behind on this.
He doesn't live in the city limits. The only qualification that he has is to own a business. And this is the only board that we have that you are allowed to not be a resident. And 2 of those seats, if I remember correctly, can be held by people that do not live in the city limits. 2 of the 5 cannot live in the city limits. It's the only board we have that that's the case. Y'all know how I feel, so I'll just leave it at that. It's up to y'all. We can either, I don't know if we could need to table it or just move past it if we have no motion.
If there's no motion, it'll die for lack of a motion. He just won't be reappointed.
Okay, I'll call for a motion, just for calling. I'll call once again for a motion. I'll call once again if there's any motion. If not, it dies for lack of a motion. We'll move to item I. Resolution 2023-21, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, approving the State of Florida Department of Transportation Public Transportation Grant, agreeing for financial project number 425169-2-94-23 regarding the Williston Municipal Airport Taxiway G rehabilitation and realignment, authorizing appropriate parties to sign any documents required to execute such agreement on behalf of the City of Williston and providing an effective date. Airport Manager Ben Stiegel.
Yes, ma'am. So this project is one that the airport is in a long time need of. It's a project, this is just the FDOT side of it. There will be an FAA side of it coming down the pike soon. Pass Road just hasn't quite received everything back from the FAA. But there's no indication that that will be a negative project at all. So this is a 100% paid for project. And essentially what we're doing is the old taxiway down by the well-built doors area, the old well-built gate, is out of what the feds like to call proper geometry. It's a runway that goes directly into the or a taxiway that goes directly into the runway, which is how a lot of old military style bases were done. However, the FAA finds this improper in today's day and age. So the intent is to remove that section of asphalt and realign it to basically where it would connect with the runway where Alpha connects, just on the other side of it, and rehab the entire apron all the way back to the fence. So not only would we get fresh pavement all the way over there, fresh asphalt for the 2 to 3 jet customers that we already have over there, but we also fix our geometry and come back into compliance with federal standards.
And it won't throw rock anymore.
That's the hope, yes, ma'am.
That's always a good thing, right? All right, any questions for Airport Manager Stiegel? I'll get it right this time. Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 2023-21.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-21.
I second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discussion with possible action. Payroll action form notice for city clerk. Certified municipal clerk certificate received. I know you saw that. I also received a letter that was glowing about Miss Latricia, that she received her own, and that's what she put in the packet. As your president, I received one as well. I also have some figures for you. And City Manager Brevard may want to chime in here too. And get your pencils out if you got a pencil, because you're probably going to want this. Her previous salary before her increase, before her evaluation, was $52,907. After her 4.5% increase, it went to $55,907. $287.82. I want to tell you that is a little bit more than $1 an hour. It sounded like a lot when you said 4.5, but when you divided it out, I think it came to like $1.14. It wasn't a whole lot. And I can tell you, when we figured this out after our last meeting and started doing the retroactive that we owed her back to October, we realized how little it was after that glowing evaluation that she received. And I hope I'm not going to embarrass her here because I'm talking about her. I will say that now she has passed her certification, and we know that we've said that she will get at least $1 an hour for that certification because this is a major milestone for her. I asked that the staff do a poll for me. I can tell you that what I asked them to do was contact multiple cities in our area that were about our size and ask them 3 questions. What is your city clerk's salary? Is your city clerk certified? And how long has she been in office? Okay, here goes your pencil again. We got a wide range of things. In Bronson, they have a city manager, but they don't have a city clerk. Their deputy city clerk makes $36,608, and she's been there for 2 years. In Cedar Key, they have a city clerk who makes $52,500, is not certified, and has been there for 1 year since March of 22. And they are in the process of raising her salary. So I've been informed by the person who gave me this. In Chiefland, they do have a city clerk. Their clerk has been there for 2 years. They are not certified. They make $51,977. In Dunellen, they don't have a city manager. Their city clerk acts as their city manager, doing both duties, and makes $74,256. But she's been there for 23 years. Worked her way up from the assistant clerk to the clerk administrator, they call her. The city of Alachua, the city manager does all the duties of the city clerk. But they have a deputy city clerk that makes $70,500. And the assistant deputy clerk, makes $35,000. Okay, so I'll go back to Ms. Latricia's numbers again. With her 4.5% increase that we gave her after her evaluation, that was $55,287. We already have said, we haven't ratified it, we will do that I hope tonight, a $1 increase for her certification. If we do that, it will take her to $57,367 and some cents. I just wanted you to know where she sits in the range of the people that are here. Ms. Latricia, how long have you been here altogether? 12 years altogether, and you've been the clerk for? Since 2018. 19, excuse me. So I just want to ask you if you think we're in the range. Think we're in the right range? That's just a question. On a major milestone that she's just accomplished that she's worked hard for 3 years. So I just want to leave it there and I let you discuss it.
Before y'all have some discussion, Latricia has made my transition fairly easy. I don't know how the past administration worked, but her and I work hand in hand together daily. There's not time that she doesn't check my work and I don't check her work. I would have to say that I was a little surprised that you could have scored such a high score and have gotten so little for it.
I felt the same way.
Yes, and she did not bring this to my attention. I brought it to hers. I had a discussion with her afterwards. And what she does for us on a daily basis and the work that she does here, you know, I felt looking at that was probably should have been more money-wise. And that was one of the reasons why this process kind of got started. So I just wanted y'all to know how important she is for the city and the staff, how important she is for me, how she pushes me to do things that I don't want to do. I'll be the first one to admit that. So without her, I think it would be difficult for me to do the things that I've done so far. And I just wanted y'all to know that.
Okay. And when I heard the $1.15 or whatever, 14, whatever it was, I couldn't believe that's all it was for 4.5%. And now to get the certification on top of it, like I said, that's a major milestone. I mean, that's like, I don't know, somebody getting your residency when you're trying to become a doctor. I mean, it's just right up there with a milestone.
Well, no matter what, effective immediately, we should honor the dollar we always said was going to.
Absolutely.
We should be effective immediately.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I haven't signed her payroll action form for that, even though we talked about it, because we haven't officially voted it in. But I also took into consideration every other department head that's here and kind of what I know they make from budget time and where they sit. And I know we brought a lot of them up to where we thought they needed to be, and I think this may be the perfect opportunity to do that for her. Even if we just pick an arbitrary number like 60,000.
Do we have that in the budget?
Any way we look at it, even with what we're going to do, it would have to be a budget amendment, because the only thing in her budget was her current salary, because that's just the way the budget works for the clerk and the city manager for that matter. So any way you look at it, we would have to adjust the budget.
So 4.5% only equals $1.
Like $1.14.
$1.14.
Yeah.
Don't forget that 14. So we should immediately fix that system, which we've discussed several times.
Yep, we have.
You know, it's a long meeting. I don't know if it's time to get into it, but we should almost at least double our figures to move it to more on the 10% range of a high score. You know what I mean?
I do.
So that we don't run into something like this moving forward.
I mean, anybody who gets a 4.5 and I, like you, I've read every comment that was written in those evaluations by these council members, and she deserved more than $1.14.
What was your suggestion?
I suggested instead of going to 57, that we go to 60. The 57 is the additional dollar that we know she's going to get. Right now she's at 55 with an extra $2,080, which is $1 an hour for a 40-hour work week for a year. That would be 57,267.
I'm good with the 60 because she could probably go get a job somewhere else making more.
I know she could, because I just read that to you.
We need to pay people what they're worth. I'm big on that on all departments. So I say do it, and then I say we fix our scale.
I'll say go to 60.
Have a motion?
I make a motion. 60.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for your consideration. At this time, we have public participation again. And there's 60,000 even.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
if it's the will of the council.
You have public participation?
I want to ask if the will of the council that I continue my
education and go for my master's.
Yes. Yep.
I'm sorry,
You just want another dollar.
She does. They also have a master's program for the city clerk, and she and I have talked about it before, and it just means continuing her education and taking the classes as she's been taking. And it becomes a master's rather than just a certification, which is the next step in the process. So, yes, she has continuing education in her budget. It is in her budget. That's right.
You are not in a contract, is that correct? This is right?
No, she's an employee.
You have no contract.
She's an employer. She's a charter officer, and I think the 60,000 is a very appropriate number for that position. Okay, public participation. Anyone else got anything for this agenda? Mr. Stiegel.
It's more of an announcement, but we'll go ahead and do it.
I like announcements. Go ahead.
So the last year we hosted the NATA Radial Engine Formation Flying Clinic, and that will be taking place this weekend again. So in the event that any of our citizens see, 2 to 3 airplanes flying in formation, we're not being invaded. This is a training that's happening. That was one of the phone calls I got last year.
You're kidding.
But no, these are professionals, doing formation flying training. So they start arriving on Thursday, and it should be finished up by Sunday. So we'll expect to see a little bit more traffic. The FBO will be open to the public, but the ramp will be closed just because there's going to be a lot of moving parts and pieces. So we're expecting to have about 30 aircraft based here for the next few days. T-28s, T-16s, and hopefully a couple more P-51s. So we'll see how it goes. The public's more than welcome to come out and sit at the restaurant and eat and drink and watch everything, or they can come out to the porch and take pictures. We're just nobody can go out on the ramp. So.
Love the drone of a radial engine.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else, Miss Latricia?
Yes, Saturday from 11 to 5. Is our Spring Fest here at Heritage Park. Oh, I'm sorry, at Heritage Park.
I'll get
so
that.
If y'all not doing anything, please come out.
Spring Fest in the park, in Heritage Park. We are a sponsor. So, and Mr. Foster is pretty much running it and providing the entertainment, but we are a sponsor. So if you want to show up, that would be wonderful. Anything else? Announcements, Mr. Barber.
I believe it's also before the next council meeting. I think April 1st. I could be wrong on that date. There is a fundraiser for the Women's Club.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Yep.
It helps with the community project.
We are having casino night. Some of your employees are going to be dealers.
It's all celebrity, city
Celebrity
people,
dealers.
and county people. Yeah.
Right. So if you'd like to attend, their tickets are available from any Women's Club member or at the Levy County Tourism Development Board. Miss Latricia.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to go ahead and announce this, but starting April 1st, we're going to be one of the cities that will be.
Are you okay?
No, she's not.
No.
When can you announce what it's going to be? April 1st.
Is this the tour?
Yes.
Okay, our Veterans Memorial has been chosen as a spot on a tour. That is a tour from Veterans Memorial to Veterans Memorial. We're on the map. So people will be coming, following that map, and to our beautiful Veterans Memorial that we're very proud of. I don't really know how we got on the map. I think they just found us and loved it and called us and informed us that we were on it. So we are very proud of that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. You need your inhaler? You need a hug, right? Give her a hug, Kirsten, will you? Anything else for this agenda? I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor say aye. The ayes have it. We will adjourn at 8:35.
Yeah.
Come on, buddy.
I'm sure if that was you or the chair.
Come on.